Alrighty. Well, seeing as people resonated with that everything's a distraction video, let's take this a step further and figure out where distraction even came from in the first place. Now, in order to figure this out, we have to know the difference between wanting to be distracted and already being distracted. So, why do we want to be distracted? Like we've talked about before, it's because we don't want to be up here. We don't want to chill in the rumination and the thoughts arising. So we choose to distract ourselves. And once we are distracted, we are not up here anymore. We are distracted. We are focused on the distraction. So with that in mind, I started thinking, where would have distraction came from in the first place? Like take the first humans. We, in the 21st century, don't want to be up here because of modern day stressors. Why didn't the first humans want to be up here? Now, I have read a lot of the comments, and people have said, oh, thought comes before language. I don't think that I ever said that it didn't. All I said was, without language, it's going to be hard to even understand what's going on up here. Hence, why we probably came up with the language in the first place. So, keeping in mind the difference between wanting to be distracted and already being distracted. Once you're distracted, you're focused on the distraction. And we have more distractions today than the first humans had. So, with that in mind, it would actually make sense that the first humans may have been thinking even more than us. And no, they didn't have a language, but thoughts were still arising. And I started trying to figure out what these thoughts may have sounded like or what they could have been. And I have two ideas, and I'm going to share them with you. So the first idea I had stemmed from babies and how babies communicate. So I think about how, a cat could have a kitten, and right at birth, a human could take that kitten and raise the kitten, and the kitten is still gonna start meowing. That's its innate style of communication, just as a cow moos or whatever. Humans are always raised by other humans, so we never really learned what a human would sound like without any influence at all. At least I don't think we have. So, with that in mind, maybe the thoughts sounded similar to how a baby communicates, and over time, maybe it evolves or maybe it doesn't. And that's part of why we needed to develop a language, is because we had these thoughts that we couldn't break down, and we had to figure out a way to break them down. Now, the second idea stems from something that I've experienced through deep meditation. So, I've had deep meditation sessions where I've almost canceled out all the modern noise, all the thoughts about what's going on in day to day society. I've had those experiences, and it doesn't last long. That's something that people need to understand about meditation, is it's really, really hard to just literally have a blank mind for like an hour straight or something. It always wanders back. And that's going to be a point for later in this video. But what I realized is sometimes when all these modern thoughts are canceled out, I hear something. I hear almost like a gibberish voice. And the first time I heard this, I was like, am I losing my mind or something? Because I have never heard this before. But then I did some research on it, and then even some of you commented on my Everything's a Distraction video, and you said the same thing, that sometimes in a deep meditation session, you'll start hearing like someone speaking with a language of gibberish that you've never heard before. And it comes in and then it's out, and then it comes in and it's out. And it's almost kind of like if you've played The Sims before. It almost sounds like that, like how they speak in that gibberish tone. So I started thinking, I hear this when the thoughts that I have from the 21st century are starting to dissipate. So maybe this is what they were hearing, is this gibberish all the time that they couldn't put any meaning behind, and it happened more frequently than we are even stuck in our own thoughts because they had less distraction. So, in turn, they must have felt this dire need to occupy themselves because they had something going on up here and they didn't know how to silence it. So the only thing that they knew was that when they were doing something else, when they were distracting themselves, that noise got quieter and quieter. So, anyways, if we go back to what this channel is all about, when I talk about creating a strong physical body and taking care of your mind and, you know, taking care of the environment, putting yourself in a positive environment, connecting with people, loving people, having some faith, I think the first humans may have had all of that. But I think what they were missing was that final pillar that I talk about, which is the self, which is that inner clarity. And one thing I wanted to talk about is meditation is not just some spiritual thing where, oh my God, I am with the gods. And, you know, it actually teaches you how to think mindfully. Because when you close your eyes and you're trying to think about nothing, and for whatever reason you can't, what that teaches you over time is that your thoughts are not your thoughts. They are thoughts arising. There's a difference between thoughts popping up when you don't want to think versus you deciding right now, I am going to think about this and let me go into detail about this. There's a difference between the two. And that's what meditation teaches you, is that it's almost like I don't know if you'd want to call it a pathology. I don't think it's that. I think it's part of being a human is we have this inner monologue or inner visuals that we don't have much control over. The only control we have over is understanding what it is and trying to create our own thoughts and our own destiny. Sometimes, what I even do is when I'm meditating, if I notice that my mind is trying to drift towards the arising thoughts, I will start talking in my head my thoughts and say, you know what, that's not something I want to think about. What I'd like to think about right now is how I'm trying to think about nothing. I'm trying to focus on nothing. And then if I drift again, I'll say, you know what, I would like to think about how I'm trying to build a healthy, positive, happy lifestyle. Like, I will try to create my own thoughts because I think a big part of the reason why people tend to say we have no free will is because a lot of us are dictated by those arising thoughts, which are not our own. And if you don't understand that you need to practice the art of creating your own thoughts, then those thoughts that arise will dictate your reality. They will create the perception around you. That's what they will do. And I think that's a big part of the reason why people think we don't have control over our scenarios. We do. We just have to understand. And if the first humans understood this, which I don't blame them for not understanding this, I only understand this because I have a language to break this down. And another thing too is being alone. I've spent time alone, whereas the first people were always with their families or with a pack or a tribe. You know, it wasn't really a time where people were alone, but I don't think they could have figured this out, because I do think you would have needed some sort of understanding of what's going on up here, and it would have been way harder without language to talk out what's going on up here. On top of it, not as many distractions, so you probably felt a stronger need to distract, which led to all the distraction that we have today, you know. And I think I'm going to add one more point to this, that greed may actually be part of all of this. This feeling of I need to distract because these thoughts that I can't even understand, are absorbing my mind when I'm not distracted. So we might have just kept distracting and distracting and distracting until whatever we were distracting ourselves with didn't work anymore. You know, you can only play a video game so many times before it gets boring, and now you're distracted and you need another one. This is probably what happened. They figured out how to make fire, and then they could only make fire so many times before it was like, okay, let's go explore over here and let's go. It kind of adds to the greed. It kind of adds to the, we need more of this. We need to explore more over here. They couldn't be content, because if you don't understand that the untrained mind will want more when they have less, and the trained mind will see that they have more when they have less, then you're just going to consistently keep searching and searching and searching and keep trying to obtain and obtain and obtain. And I genuinely think that is what has led us to where we are right now. So I'm going to leave it at that. Let me know what you think. Thank you for watching. And yeah, like and subscribe. Thank you for watching the Alone Wolf channel.